I would like to thank the organizer for the opportunity to share my presentation today. This presentation, titled Reviews of Overheating ENDS Aerosol Recent Update, is a summary of 3 years of collaborative efforts with my colleague Roberto Alan Sussman. Most of the literature on vaping science can be classified on a box of the adverse outcome pathway approach. However, the distribution of the literature is not calibrated, and there is a limited interest on the left part, dealing with how the device operates and how they are used. Our expertise is precisely on that aspect, and one of our concerns is related to the systematization of the generation of aerosol using inconsistent conditions, which bias their observation in the following box. Our purpose is to highlight that overheated conditions are mainly used, leading to the releasing of polluted aerosol with high levels of byproducts. This raised questions on the interpretation of the results published. This curve is a typical functioning curve of an ENDS. It links the mass of a liquid vaporized to the power supplied. There are two specific powers called the minimal and the maximal powers. Below the minimal powers, the mass of a liquid vaporized is a constant value close to zero with low airflow. From that point, increasing the power leads to a linear increasing of the mass of a liquid vaporized. This linearity is the main characteristic of the optimal regime, where boiling occurs under a nucleate form. At the maximal power, this linearity is broken and the mass of a liquid vaporized shows a transition before starting a new increasing, introducing the overheating condition. At this point, boiling moves to film boiling and a layer of gas surrounds the coil, leading to the drying of closed cotton fibers. These gas reach temperatures above its boiling temperature and the e-liquid, allowing the initiation of cotton pyrolysis. Here are few examples of consequences of overheating condition. The red box is an estimated value of the maximal power. The green box is a range recommended by the manufacturer. As illustrated, the overheated conditions are necessarily correlated to its significant increasing of aldehyde, the introduction of carbon monoxide, and to an increasing of the metalloid released. So we conduct a review of paper looking firstly for metals and metalloids in emission, and then for aldehydes, carbon monoxide, and free radical in a second review. Despite the lack of details provided on the conditions of generation, there is an ongoing systematization of high-power device with a low vaping regime. Then we discovered an old video of an equipment sold by SCOHRE, which is used to generate aerosol. A sub-tank is used as a reference device at the highest power that can be fixed on the box, 70 watt, despite it is recommended between 15 and 50 watt. This warmed our cells and our concern was justified later in the video. In fact, the e-liquid in the tank was initially uncolored and hence brown. This is a sign of advanced overheating condition where the cotton is pyrolyzed. So we moved further and decided to review the papers that use this equipment with the specific coil of 0.15 ohm. At the end of our inquiry, we found 41 articles that potentially use this condition. I said potentially because 11 don't provide any information except the authors referred to the SCOHRE equipment. 27 provided few details, allowing us to suspect that they operated under the targeted condition, and only 3 clearly details how emissions were generated. In that type of experiments, there was also an ongoing standardization of overheating condition. Recently, an article investigated the consequence of dry heating by comparing the same conditions with and without refilling. The main issue is that even with refilling, the condition leads to overheating and to another source of dry heating, which is film boiling. This was observable on the cotton browning and on the condensate browning. Despite other calls for prevention on dry heating, they also called for chronic and long-term investigation as if the experiment was consistent with real use. Currently, there is a standardization of overheating condition as a daily consistent consumption of electronic cigarette. Despite overheating condition can occur, like for toasted bread, this side of the sample is the main daily consistent consumption. What we also wanted to raise comes from a comment that we received in a recent reviewing process. I read, "This biased literature review is not novel, as the same research group has already published several publications that provided the same opinion. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but it isn't clear why the same message has to be repeated in several papers from the same pro-vaping research group." So, we demonstrated that overheated conditions with data are not opinion, but they are proof of a physical phenomena. But currently, the ideological war in tobacco harm reduction makes the scientific community necessarily pro or anti-vaping and pollutes the objectivity required in the reviewing process. Our main message is to take care on how vaping devices are used and to make connection with food science. By analogy, I think we should consider the role of perception, as no bread is eaten carbonized. We should also consider the role of training as a harm reduction skill. By analogy, overcooked food mainly occurs in the first trial of cooking training. We should also consider how the vaping devices are set in real use. By analogy, it is obvious that no oven is set at 500 degrees to cook. Thank you for your attention.